He fired me on a Thursday. No warning, no discussion. Just a performance review that wasn't a review at all. It was a verdict. The conference room smelled faintly of burnt coffee and expensive failure. The blinds were half closed, slicing the sunlight into gray ribbons that landed across the table between us. Him, Nathan Hale, the new CEO, and me, Ethan Cole, the man who had built the very system that kept this company breathing. He leaned back in my chair, the one I'd picked when I designed this division from scratch, and gave me that rehearsed corporate smile. All teeth and no sincerity. "Ethan," he said, adjusting his tie, "we've decided to move in a different direction. Your performance hasn't aligned with our new vision." Vision. It was the favorite word of men who had none. He tapped a stack of papers on the table. A review, though I knew he hadn't written a single word of it. I watched his hands tremble slightly as he spoke. Weakness disguised as power. That's how I knew he wasn't as confident as he wanted me to think. "I won't spend another dime on an incompetent employee," he said finally, leaning back with a smirk. "That line will never leave me. Not because it hurt, but because it revealed exactly who he was." I didn't argue, didn't defend myself, didn't even blink. I just smiled and said, "Good luck." He took that as surrender. That was his first mistake. Before Nathan came, this company was a different creature. We built things that mattered, systems that worked, ideas that breathed. When I joined 7 years ago, it was just 12 people in a rented office with cracked floors and unpainted walls. We had nothing but code, coffee, and faith. I designed the architecture that powered our first product, a real-time transaction framework that changed the way digital platforms communicated. It was elegant, seamless, and most importantly, mine. When I filed the system patent, I didn't use the company's name. I registered it under mine and licensed it to the firm under a renewable contract. A small act of caution that, at the time, felt like paranoia. But paranoia, it turns out, is just foresight wearing armor. Then came Nathan Hale, fresh from some corporate empire, armed with a degree, an ego, and a fragile need to dominate. On his first day, he shook my hand and said, "I've heard a lot about you, Ethan. I want to learn everything about your system." And like a fool, I taught him, carefully, selectively, watching him the entire time. He was the kind of man who measured success not by creation, but by control. He interrupted more than he listened, took credit for ideas he didn't understand. In meetings, I'd watch him present my strategies as if they were his own, changing just enough words to claim originality. He called it leadership. I called it theft with a PowerPoint. It started small. Emails I wasn't copied on, budgets rerouted through him, meetings rescheduled when I wasn't around. A slow corrosion, but one night, staying late as usual, I opened the shared drive to find a proposal draft for an investor presentation. My system, my diagrams, my proprietary language, signed at the bottom with Nathan Hale, Chief Executive Officer. That was the night I stopped trusting and started planning. Revenge, for me, has never been about rage. It's about precision. I began rewriting things, not code, but contracts. Quietly, surgically. The license renewal for my patent was coming up in less than a month. I adjusted the terms. No company access beyond the renewal date unless signed personally by me. No auto extension. No backdoor clause, simple, legal, invisible. Nathan thought power was about domination. He had no idea it was about preparation. The day he fired me, I packed my mug, my pens, and my silence. I didn't look back. He watched me leave with the kind of smug confidence that only ignorance can afford. The office was buzzing behind me. Clicks, screens, the constant hum of servers that all whispered my code. My code. Every transaction, every report, every process ran through my logic. They thought it was theirs, but it was never theirs. It was mine, borrowed on trust. When I stepped out into the cold November air, I felt weightless, not broken, just calm, like a chess player walking away from the board knowing exactly how the game would end, because what Nathan didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that the system license would expire that Sunday night at midnight. And without renewal, everything the company depended on would freeze. Servers, transactions, data, gone in seconds. He thought he'd fired me. He'd actually fired the only man who could keep his empire alive. And as I walked away from that glass building, the sun setting behind me, I knew one thing for certain. By Monday morning, Nathan Hale would finally understand what it means to underestimate silence. Friday came with quiet satisfaction. I woke up without an alarm, brewed my coffee, and opened my laptop out of habit. My inbox was empty. No company alerts, no code updates. No one noticed I was gone yet. That was good. I wanted silence. Silence was camouflage. Nathan Hale, on the other hand, was making noise. By noon, a friend from the office, Maya, our lead data analyst, sent me a message from her personal email. He called a meeting right after you left, told everyone you were underperforming and slowing down innovation. They applauded him, Ethan. Like he just cured cancer. I'm sorry. I smiled at that, not because it hurt, but because it was predictable. Desperate men always need an audience when they destroy someone better than them. I spent the rest of the day quietly finalizing the paperwork I'd started weeks before. The license renewal for my system, officially titled Cole Arch Transaction Engine, was due to expire Sunday 11:59 p.m. No one in the company had even seen the contract. I had written it myself, back when our first legal team trusted me with the autonomy to manage intellectual property. They were startups back then, hungry, idealistic, careless. They never noticed the fine print that said the renewal could only be approved by the original patent holder. Me. I reread the terms one last time, not out of guilt, but clarity. Everything was legal. Everything was precise. Everything was earned. When Nathan fired me, he didn't just lose an employee. He terminated a license. He just didn't know it yet. That Friday night, I sat on my balcony overlooking the city. The skyline was glowing, thousands of windows lit up like digital stars. Somewhere in that ocean of light was Nathan's office. I wondered if he was still sitting there, rehearsing another victory speech for Monday's board meeting. He probably was. Men like Nathan believe control is eternal until reality proves otherwise. By midnight, I'd made my final move, a quiet license revocation update in the digital registry. It took less than 2 minutes, one submission, one confirmation email. That was all. No fireworks, no sound, just quiet inevitability. Saturday passed like a ghost. I met Maya for coffee. She was nervous, whispering like someone afraid the walls might hear her. "He's been taking credit for your entire system," she said, stirring her cup. "Told the board he'll upgrade your architecture in a week." I raised an eyebrow. "Upgrade without documentation?" She nodded. "He doesn't even know where the core scripts are stored. He keeps bluffing his way through presentations." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Just don't do anything crazy," she said softly. "You're better than him." I smiled. "Maya, I'm not doing anything. I'm just letting things expire." She frowned, not understanding. I didn't explain. Some lessons are best witnessed, not described. By Sunday evening, I felt the strange, calm soldiers must feel before an ambush. Steady, focused, patient. My laptop sat open beside me, the system dashboard on one screen, a clock on the other. 11:57 p.m. The company's entire infrastructure, servers, payment gateways, cloud clusters, all humming under a license that was seconds away from extinction. 11:59 p.m. I exhaled slowly, watching the clock tick forward. 2 a.m. License expired. No explosions, no alarms, just silence. But in that silence, the company's digital heart stopped beating. Monday, 8:45 a.m. I was at my favorite cafe, reading the news, when the first message came through. Unknown number, then another, then another. By 9:01 a.m., my phone was vibrating nonstop. Server down, database inaccessible, API failure, client reports frozen. The company's network had flatlined. At 9:15, the system dashboard I still had access to showed total system failure. Root authentication invalid. By 9:30, my phone rang again. Nathan Hale. I let it ring twice before answering. He didn't say hello, just breathed panic. "Ethan, what the hell did you do? The system's down, nothing works. We can't access anything." I took a slow sip of coffee. You terminated my contract, Nathan. The system runs under a private license. What are you talking about? He barked. It's company property. No, I said calmly. It's licensed property. My property. You should really read the contracts you inherit. Silence. A long one. I could hear his breathing on the line, uneven, shaky. Then the inevitable desperation. We'll sue you for this. You're welcome to try, I replied, keeping my tone surgical. The patent is public record. My name's on it. My terms are binding. I paused, then added softly. You once said you wouldn't spend another dime on an incompetent employee. Turns out you'll have to spend a lot more to replace one. He didn't respond. Just hung up. I watched my reflection in the coffee's surface. I didn't smile. Revenge wasn't joy. It was balance restored. By noon, the news had spread across the tech world. Hailtech faces massive system outage, millions in losses. Investors were in panic. Clients were threatening lawsuits, and I was home, barefoot, watering my plants. Sometimes justice doesn't need a courtroom. Sometimes it just needs patience and a quiet mind that remembers. By Tuesday morning, the headlines had multiplied like wildfire. Tech giant faces historic shutdown. CEO silent amid data freeze. Millions in transactions lost after license error. Is Hailtech doomed? My phone kept buzzing with messages from old colleagues, journalists, even former interns who'd once worked under me. Most of them were curious. A few were worried, and one or two, those who really knew me, just sent a single line. Was this you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. While the world speculated, Hailtech's headquarters had turned into a digital graveyard. The servers were frozen, their backup systems locked out. The code that powered every payment, every process, every client dashboard, it all depended on a unique authentication key. My key. The one only I could renew. I imagined the chaos inside those glass walls. The frantic meetings, the shouting, the disbelief. Nathan Hale pacing like a trapped animal, his perfect tie loosened, his hands trembling the way they did when he fired me. It must have been beautiful in its irony. He wanted control. Now he had none. By midday, Maya called. Her voice was low, urgent. Ethan, it's a madhouse here. No one knows what's happening. Nathan's in full panic mode. He's yelling at the IT department, threatening to fire people. The board's flying in from New York. I leaned back in my chair, listening. Did he tell them the truth yet? He's blaming you, obviously. Says you sabotaged the system before you left. I laughed softly. And what does the legal team say? They checked the patent records this morning. Her voice dropped. Your name's right there, Ethan. It's literally called Coal Arc Transaction System. They're losing their minds. Good, I said. Let them, she hesitated. They're going to reach out to you. The board, I mean. I know, I said, looking at the quiet skyline outside my window. And when they do, they'll finally understand the difference between ownership and employment. That afternoon, Nathan tried again. He called 3 times before I picked up. Ethan. His voice cracked through the receiver. Listen, we need to fix this. I don't care what happened before. Monday morning arrived like a storm I'd been expecting for years. I wore the same suit I'd worn the day Nathan fired me. Not out of sentimentality, but symbolism. Still fit, and so did the silence I carried with it. I took the BART downtown, the same route I'd once taken every morning, except this time. I wasn't walking into Hailtech as an employee. I was walking in as the man who owned their heartbeat. The security guard at the front desk hesitated when he saw me. Mr. Cole? He asked quietly. They said to send you straight up to the 12th floor. Of course they did. There was no badge scan, no waiting room this time. Just the quiet acknowledgement that I was now someone they couldn't afford to keep outside. When the elevator doors opened, I was greeted by an unfamiliar hush. Hailtech's once buzzing open floor was eerily still. Monitors dark, servers idle. Engineers staring at screens frozen mid-error. It felt like walking through the ruins of something I had once loved. Then, through the glass boardroom wall, I saw them, 6 men in suits, 2 women from legal. And in the corner, Nathan Hale. He looked smaller. Not physically, but spiritually. The kind of small that comes from being publicly exposed and privately broken. His tie was gone, his sleeves rolled up. eyes sunken from nights without sleep. For the first time, I almost pitied him. "Almost, Mr. Cole," said Richard Grant, the board chairman, standing as I entered. "We appreciate you coming on such short notice." I nodded slightly and took a seat at the head of the table. Nathan opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off with a look that reminded him of his mistake. Grant cleared his throat and continued. "We've reviewed all the legal documents and confirmed that the system patent, the Cole Arc architecture, is indeed your intellectual property. We'd like to discuss a new licensing arrangement." I folded my hands. "Of course. But before we talk numbers, let's talk history." They exchanged uncertain glances. "This company," I began, "wasn't built by investors or executives. It was built by engineers, people who believed in building systems that outlast egos. For 7 years, I gave everything I had to make Hailtech work. I trusted the people in this room to value that. Instead, I was fired without warning, accused of incompetence by someone who didn't even understand the first line of my code." Nathan shifted uncomfortably. I leaned back and continued, my tone calm but sharp. "So, if we're going to discuss renewal, I want to make sure the foundation is clear. This isn't about revenge. It's about respect and ownership." Grant nodded slowly. "Understood, Mr. Cole. What are your terms?" I let the silence stretch. They needed to feel it, the power shift, the reversal. Then I placed a folder on the table. "I'll renew the license under a new 5-year agreement," I said. "The company will retain full operational access, provided 3 conditions are met." Grant gestured for me to continue. "First," I said, "the system remains under my oversight. Any modification or expansion must receive written approval from me." "That's reasonable," one of the legal advisors said cautiously. "Second," I continued, "I will return as an independent consultant, not as an employee, on a retainer equal to double my former salary. Billed quarterly." Grant exchanged a quick look with the finance director. There was no protest. They expected it. "And third," I turned to Nathan, whose eyes darted away. "Nathan Hale resigns, officially, permanently." The room fell into a thick silence. Nathan's face flushed red. "You can't be serious," he snapped. "You think you can walk back in here?" And I raised a hand. "I'm not asking, Nathan. I'm stating the price of stability. The company can't rebuild trust with a man who destroyed it." He glared at me, jaw clenched. "You're doing this to humiliate me." "No," I said softly. "You did that yourself," Grant sighed, rubbing his temples. "Mr. Hale, perhaps we should—" "I'm not stepping down," Nathan barked. "He's blackmailing us with his system." I leaned forward. "No, Nathan. I'm offering you a way out. Without me, Hailtech collapses within a week. Every investor here knows it. Every client knows it. But with me, survives." Grant turned to Nathan, voice heavy. "Nathan, the board's decision is final. Effective immediately, you're relieved of your duties." Nathan stared at him, frozen. "You can't—" "We just did," Grant said. For a long moment, Nathan didn't move. Then in silence, he gathered his papers, stood, and left. The door closed behind him with the quiet weight of finality. The board signed the new contract before noon. 5-year renewal, full consulting authority, my terms, my system, my rules. As I walked out of the building, employees whispered from their desks. Some smiled discreetly. Maya caught my eye near the elevator and mouthed 2 words. "You won." I didn't smile. Winning wasn't the goal. It was balance restored. Outside, the wind carried the faint hum of city traffic, the sound of life moving forward. For the first time in years, I felt that same hum inside me. Not triumph, peace, revenge hadn't built me, but justice had rebuilt me. That night, as I sat in my apartment watching the skyline, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "You took everything from me." Nathan Hale. I stared at the text for a long moment, then replied, "No, Nathan. You handed it over." I set the phone down, closed my laptop, and exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an employee or even an inventor. I felt like what I truly was, the architect of my own story. The week after Nathan's resignation was quieter than I expected. No press statements. No dramatic board announcements. Just an internal email from the chairman. Effective immediately, Ethan Cole will oversee the Cole Arc system as an external consultant. We thank Mr. Hale for his past service. That was it. A single paragraph that ended an era and began mine. When I walked into Hailtech again, something was different. The whispers were gone. The stares replaced with nods, subtle, respectful. Some faces still avoided my gaze, guilt written in their eyes, but others, like Maya's, carried something new. Pride. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," the receptionist greeted me. The same one who'd looked away the day I was fired. "Good morning," I replied, not unkindly. I wasn't here to settle old scores anymore. I was here to build something stronger than revenge. Legacy. My new office was minimalist. Glass walls overlooking the San Francisco skyline. No corner desk, no fancy title plate. Just a single line etched on a small plaque. Inventor, architect, rebuilder. I'd asked for it that way. Maya stopped by mid-morning carrying a coffee, black just like old times. "You didn't waste any time redecorating," she said with a teasing smile. "Didn't need to," I said. "The view's the same. I just finally belong on this side of the glass." She hesitated before speaking again. "The team. They're different now, quieter, a bit scared maybe." "Good," I said softly. "A little fear keeps people honest. But I'll earn their trust back in time." "You will," she said and smiled. "You always do." By noon, I had a dozen reports on my desk. System outages, code conflicts, delayed releases. The mess Nathan had left behind wasn't just technical, it was moral. People had stopped believing their work mattered, so I did what I'd always done best. I got to work. I joined the engineers on the floor, no suit jacket, no pretense. I listened. I debugged. I reminded them that this system wasn't just code. It was a living, breathing network of trust, precision, and collaboration. By the end of the week, the servers were stable again. The heartbeat of Hailtech was back, but so was something else, hope. One evening, as I was leaving, Grant called me into his office. He looked tired but relieved. "Ethan," he said, "I wanted to thank you. The investors are calm again. The press will be briefed tomorrow. You've done in 5 days what Nathan couldn't do in 5 months. I nodded. "It wasn't about saving the company, Richard. It was about saving the people who built it." He smiled faintly. "You're not the same man who left, are you?" "No," I said. "The man who left was angry. The one who came back understands that revenge isn't power. It's distraction." Grant leaned forward. "You know the board's been considering restructuring the company's leadership. There's talk about reinstating a CTO position. Full control, full salary, full stake. It's yours if you want it." For a moment, I just stared at him. Months ago, I would have grabbed that offer without blinking. "But now, I appreciate it," I said finally. "But I'm not interested in titles anymore. I've built what I needed to build. Now I just want to make sure no one destroys it again." Grant nodded, understanding. "You've earned that peace." That night, I walked through the empty hallways, lights dimmed, the faint hum of servers echoing like memories. I stopped at the old office that used to be mine, now empty, stripped bare. I opened the door, stepped inside, and let my hand rest on the cold metal of the desk. The same desk I once slammed in frustration, the same one I'd left behind when I thought everything was over. I whispered quietly, "Guess we both made it out alive." Then I smiled, not the smile of victory, but of release. As I walked out, Maya caught up to me near the elevator. "Heading out early?" she asked. "Early?" I chuckled. "It's midnight," she smiled. "Still the same Ethan, maybe," I said. "Just lighter." The elevator doors closed, and as they did, I caught one last glimpse of Hailtech's glowing logo reflected on the glass. It no longer felt like a brand. It felt like a promise that sometimes justice doesn't roar. It rebuilds quietly. Back home, I poured myself a drink and stared at the patent certificate hanging on my wall. The one that once meant survival now meant something else entirely, freedom. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Nathan. It was Maya. "Dinner tomorrow?" "No business talk, just old friends catching up." I smiled. "Old friends?" I replied. I liked the sound of that. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing redemption. I'd already found it. Sometimes revenge ends a story, but forgiveness, quiet, steady, and earned, begins another. A year later, the city looked different. Or maybe I did. San Francisco had that same golden haze that makes everything look like a memory you haven't lived yet. The cable cars still rattled past the same streets, the same noise, the same rhythm. But for me, time had shifted. I wasn't Ethan Cole, the fired employee, anymore. I wasn't even Ethan Cole, the man who brought Hailtech to its knees. I was something simpler, the man who'd finally stopped needing to prove he was right. The invitation came 3 weeks earlier. Hailtech Anniversary Gala, honoring 10 years of innovation. Dress code, formal. Attendance, optional. It was signed by Grant himself. I didn't plan on going. At first, it felt unnecessary. The past was buried, the company running strong under new leadership. But something inside me, maybe the same quiet instinct that built the system, told me I needed to see it one last time. Not for validation, for closure. When I arrived, the ballroom glowed with sterile elegance. Crystal lights, soft jazz, champagne that tasted like apology. Maya spotted me first. She looked different, calmer, confident. She was now head of operations, and she wore the title like armor polished by experience. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, smiling. "Neither did I replied. "You're in the program," she added, lowering her voice. "Grant's going to mention the original system design. Your patent." I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't authorize that." "You didn't have to," she said softly. "They're giving you credit this time." When Grant took the stage, the room fell silent. He started with the usual corporate pleasantries, market growth, new products, investor optimism. But then his tone shifted. "A decade ago," he said, "this company was built on a foundation designed by one man. A man who believed systems should serve people, not power. That belief nearly vanished under poor leadership. But it survived, and because truth has a way of resurfacing." He turned toward me. "Ethan Cole, would you join me on stage?" For a second, my throat tightened. I wasn't used to applause, at least not the kind that felt earned. But as I walked up, the sound swelled like a tide of acknowledgement that had been waiting years to rise. I didn't prepare a speech. I didn't need one. I just took the microphone, looked at the crowd, and said, "Systems don't make companies work. People do. And the moment you start building for profit instead of purpose, you lose both. Simple. Honest. Enough." Afterward, people came up to shake my hand. Engineers, interns, even executives I barely remembered. The same ones who once looked past me now looked through me, as if trying to see how someone could survive everything and still smile. I left before dessert. Outside, the air was crisp, the city lights stretching endlessly across the bay. A black sedan pulled up beside me. Grant rolled down the window. "Ethan," he said, "before you go, I want you to know something. We archived your system last month. It's now officially called the Cole Framework. Every employee learns it on their first day." I smiled faintly. "That's a good name," he nodded. "Nathan. He never recovered from what happened. Last I heard, he's working in consulting. Small firms. Nothing like Hailtech." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, "People like Nathan don't destroy companies. They test them. And sometimes that's what keeps them alive." Grant's eyes softened. "You really don't hold grudges, do you?" I looked out at the skyline, lights flickering like electric constellations. "Grudges are heavy," I said quietly. "And I spent too many years carrying things that didn't matter." He smiled. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night, Grant." Back home, I poured a cup of coffee, the same brand I used to drink on those long nights debugging code, and sat at my desk. The patent certificate still hung on the wall, but now it wasn't the centerpiece. Next to it was a framed photo of the original team, smiling, messy, proud. I stared at it for a while. That's what he never understood. The system wasn't just software. It was people. Every line of code carried their fingerprints. Every algorithm was built on trust. He thought he could own it. But you can't own something that was built with heart. You can only be part of it, or be erased by it. My phone buzzed. Message from Maya. "Guess what? They're naming the new innovation lab after you. The Cole Research Wing. Hope you don't mind." I smiled. "Mind? No, but tell them to make sure the chairs are comfortable this time." She replied with a laughing emoji. For a long moment, I just sat there, the city hum outside my window, the past quiet in my chest. No bitterness, no noise, just balance, the kind that comes when justice and peace finally shake hands. At 11:59 p.m., I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and whispered into the dark, "Good luck, Hail Tech. You're ready now, because sometimes the best revenge is walking away and letting your work keep speaking long after you're gone. Revenge fades, legacy doesn't, and sometimes silence is the loudest victory of all."